Hi, YouTube. I'm going to play you something Ted Cruz calls Mayokas incompetent for letting criminals across the border, but it's more serious than even the Secretary of Congress is admitting. He won't admit it, as a matter of fact. He won't even answer a yes or no question. Hear this.
Exactly why on January 5th we announced the parole
Do you know how many? Do you know how many children have been sexually assaulted?
This is why we...
Okay, you're going to refuse to answer that question as well. Let's move on. It's obvious you've been instructed to stonewall, so I'm not going to let you. You don't get to stonewall and filibuster. Now, one of my Democratic colleagues before said the Democrat talking point, quote, "This problem didn't start under Biden." Look, I get if you're a partisan spinner, you got to figure out something to say about the absolute catastrophe that has played out under the Biden administration. True or false, Secretary Mayokas, 2020 was the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. Is that true or false?
It is certainly the lowest level of immigration in many, many years. And what was it in 2020? What was it, Senator, in 2020 that impacted the entire world, including the United States?
Okay, so your testimony is the reason we had the lowest rate was COVID. It had nothing to do with building the wall, nothing to do with any catch and release, nothing to do with Remain in Mexico. With all respect, Mr. Secretary, that answer is laughable. And in fact, if you look at illegal immigration, let's look at CBP encounters. You can see 500,000, 500,000. It drops to the lowest level, and boom, what happens? You show up. And that red line is you. That red line is Joe Biden. And you're claiming nothing happened. Oh, gosh, this was here before us. No, you made the decision to allow this to happen. Let me ask you, we now have over 5.5 million people who've entered this country illegally under Joe Biden. How many murderers have you released into America?
Senator, I'm not aware of any murderer whom we've...
So you don't know?
Senator, let me say something.
Do you know?
If you take a look at...
No, you don't get to give a speech. Do you know how many murderers you've released?
I'm just trying to answer your question.
How many rapists have you released?
Senator, I'm trying to answer your question.
You can answer, I know or I don't know.
Senator, any individual who poses a public safety threat...
How many child molesters have you released?
...and removed into the United States, from the United States.
Oh, so your testimony under oath, subject to perjury, is that you have not released any murderers, rapists, or child molesters among the 5.5 million. Is that your testimony?
Mr. Chairman, may I have the opportunity?
No, you may not. You may answer my question.
You're not.
Is that your testimony? Yes or no?
Senator, you're not allowing me to answer your question.
I am allowing you to answer. I'm not allowing you to filibuster.
If you take a look at the pace of immigration in 2018 to 2019,
you're refusing to answer. Let's move on. Let's move on to gotaways. Gotaways are the people that get away that you know about. Now, what happened under your administration? Gotaways consistently down at this low line. Boom, you get in. And they go from below 180,000 to 600,000. Now, I'll tell you this about a gotaway. You don't know, among those 600,000 a year, you have no idea how many are murderers, correct?
That is precisely why the number of gotaways...
Do you know how many of those are murderers?
That is precisely
But you refuse to answer the question. You know how many are rapists? Do you know how many are rapists? This is a question. You're a lawyer. You know how to answer questions. Of the 600,000, do you know how many of them were rapists?
Senator, this is why
the answer is no. Let me ask you this. Do you know how many of them are terrorists? And I don't want to, Senator, here's my lecture on this. Do you know how many of the 600,000 gotaways were terrorists? Yes or no?
Senator, we are focused on the...
You refuse to answer that as well. What's the result of massive gotaways? Well, one of the results is drug overdoses. And we now have, last year, over 100,000 overdoses who died, the majority from Chinese fentanyl streaming across the border. Now, you told Senator Cornyn you care, but look what has happened under your policy. When you open up the border to the worst illegal immigration in our nation's history, people die. You claim you care. Mr. Secretary, that is a lie. You know, some months ago, Karine Jean-Pierre stood up at a White House briefing and said, people are not just walking across the border. Was she telling the truth?
Senator, you are
Was she telling the
so
truth?
Profoundly disrespecting.
Was she telling the truth?
22 years
Okay,
of government service.
you get to answer questions. You don't get to give speeches.
Senator, I served as a federal prosecutor.
All right, you're refusing to answer. If you look at, she was lying, and she was not lying on her own. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. Now, the photograph people walking. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. This is a photograph from just one day along the Rio Grande of hundreds of thousands of people walking across the border. You have allowed this to happen. The photograph that was before, what are these wristbands?
I don't know what they are.
You don't know what they are. Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job, because I've been to the southern border, and if you go to the southern border, along the southern border, you see thousands of these wristbands because the illegal immigrants wear them. The drug cartels, every color corresponds to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You have turned these cartels into multi-billion-dollar criminal organizations, and these are modern-day leg irons, because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are. That is astonishing. Mr. Secretary, how many children have been sold into sex slavery under your administration?
Senator, we are taking it to the cartel.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery? Do you know how many children have been sold into sex slavery?
To an unprecedented degree.
Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now, your behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped to follow political orders. This is a crisis. It's a disgrace, and you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
Claiming 1 minute chairman time, Mr. Secretary, would you like to respond to any of those questions?
What the senator said was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
These 3 rich women were planning to play a prank on a poor woman that they consider ugly, poor,
What a bitch, huh? Anyway, everybody, I just wanted you to hear all that because I think it's important that people really understand about the child trafficking, and we know about the drugs and the dangers about all that. Did you know when a child is trafficked, they're raped several times a day? Sometimes even worse things are happening to them. And they use these children till they're about 15 years old when they call them aged out. And then it's said that they're put to death, and it's the sickos that want to murder somebody that will pay for that privilege. So this is a real and a very serious thing going on in the United States of America. And I have no words for it. I mean, a yes or no question would have been appropriate out of that man on these subjects, and he should know the statistics of how many children are coming across those borders and that type of thing. We all should know. We know they're pouring in on a daily basis, but yet most of the democracy of Washington, D.C. is more concerned about Ukraine's borders than they are ours. And the children are not pouring in by the hundreds and thousands in the Ukraine. Right now, what we have is a physical crisis of it's astronomical. It's unbelievable. So, my friend is fasting. I'll play this for you real quick and then let you go. He said, I'm currently captivated watching goji berries in my carbonated water randomly drop to the bottom of the glass and immediately pop back up to the top over and over again. They need to offer a drink like this at bars. Fascinated while fasting. And I laughed at it. And then I laughed even harder because he wrote, "That's called buoyancy. Oops, I mean gravity." I know he said he was bored today, but my God, Clay, for God's sakes, right? Dude. Yeah, I'm sure he's doing some deep, dark meditating while he's fasting there. Almost look like blood cells. That's a trip. That is funny. Let's see what other people said. Oh, too much, dude. Killjoy. That is hilarious. I don't even know what goji berries are, but I'm going to have to try. I don't personally, but this person said she bought a case of goji berries. I am going to have to try putting them in carbonated the next time I run out of things to do. Yeah, for real. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Have a really good night or day wherever you're at. I'll talk to you tomorrow.